Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Anyone else? Questions real quick? No? Anyway, who here plays with itty-bitty computers? Who here would like to play with itty-bitty computers?
Everybody?
What? You know now, yes, maybe?
No, I do now, yeah.
Okay. Who's got to know but wants to? All right, who's already done it?
I can walk it over.
And this is for Evan. I promised you one of these for Christmas. So, well, I started off with what we consider to be really, really big computers. In particular, the computer I spend most of my time working on nowadays was first built in 1989 and cost $30,000. It's from MIPS. It was the coolest thing ever. It was. The graphics. And that at the time, well, I remember things like SIGGRAPH. The first, I know that you're so used to current stuff, but back then someone managed to finally draw a realistic blade of grass. And that was like, yes, everyone did that. And then the next year they actually managed to do a grassy field. And then we got as far as Avatar. And that was on equipment like that, the MIPS 3000 architecture. Amazingly, that same CPU chip is still around today. It was recently, it cost so little they actually recently open sourced it. And all the work that I've been doing on bufferbloat, solving all the problems of the networking universe for the last 8 years has been on hardware that costs about $8 to $20. And from devices like this, well, anyway, this is basically my model of the internet. And from prototyping a half dozen algorithms on devices like this, those algorithms in code are now running on hundreds of millions of machines today. You can make a really big difference with next to nothing in money or hardware. So up in the Los Gatos hills, I have a Wi-Fi lab. A friend of mine said, hey, use my campground for your experiments, 110 acres. It was pretty cool. I'd wandered the entire world looking for some place without a Wi-Fi signal. Couldn't find one. I found one in the Los Gatos hills. And from there, a typical paper I'm very proud of called Ending the Anomaly. We prototyped all that stuff. And that code is now shipping in the tens of millions. Pretty really amazing algorithms. But in order to get there, you had to think like the machine. Or like Kelly Johnson, think about the air, or Ben Jacobson, think about packets. I'm curious, this is a scary question for me. How many people, how often is assembly language taught today? One person. How many? You had to use it. I used switches when I was growing up, okay? You had to know this stuff. You had to be able to think like the machine. Your intuition had to line up with that. And anyway, I've got a gig up in the hills doing this thing called lossless congestion control. I've hopefully given you all enough time to answer. Take a look at the quiz. Yes? Raise your hands if you've even taken a look at the quiz so far. 1, 2, 3. Tough. Again, you don't actually need to know, have read the material to answer at least half the questions on the quiz. It's actually not that hard. The other half are difficult as hell. But I still didn't know my audience. Suzanne, did you try taking the quiz?
Stephanie, but yeah,
Stephanie,
no, I didn't actually get a copy. I made the copy, but I didn't actually take it.
The important thing is absolutely every one of you have been using the internet your whole life. These algorithms are the fundamental way that we communicate over them. So I'm going to have to, because you haven't done your homework, I'm going to need a volunteer to help me out. Let's see. Who looks volunteering? You keep volunteering back there, sir. I was going to use Evan because I knew him for a reliable backup, but I'd rather use a virgin. Let's see.
I haven't looked at this stuff in a long time anyway. I'm all about UDP these days. I'm not even thinking about this stuff anymore.
Anybody know what UDP is? Okay, that's good. 3/4 of the room. How many people here have used DNS? Every last one of you has used DNS, okay? Related question to that though, is you ever done a lookup for like a known website like google.com and have it come back saying IP address not found? Yes, all of you have seen that. That's a DNS failure for some kind of cost. Anyone have, every single time you make a lookup on the web or the internet, you turn a name into a number. Anyone like to hazard a guess as to how many times per day you do that if you're using the internet all day long? 10,000 times? Seems like a good number. So there's 2 billion people on the internet. So that's 20 trillion times. And occasionally it fails. You know, any idea what the failure rate might actually be? Can you imagine how big do you think the team of programmers are that maintains that? By the way, it's a very, very low error rate. It's in the, I don't know, 5 sigmas. It's way down there. How many people imagine the team managing 20 trillion plus DNS queries a day? How big is the programming team managing that, keeping it working? Take a guess. You, Carlos.
5?
He's right there.
5 is correct for the project I work on, and there's another handful of projects that also have about 5 each. So, wow. Yeah.
About 20 people in the whole world hold the whole DNS system together, and Evan there is the bind 9 maintainer, which is responsible for about 9/10 of it. This is, by the way, one of the beauties and flaws of open source. Anybody can fix it, and in order to push it forward and maintain it really requires an expert. And once you've reached that level of ubiquity with your software, obviously it must be perfect. Nobody needs to pay for it anymore. And the company he works for is a nonprofit that really struggles.
That's why we have to keep putting new bugs into it.
Yes. Okay. No, anyway, but give him, hold on, Evan. All right, go do that, come back. Working on open source is often a thankless job. He's had to deal with one major sleep-losing bug every quarter for the last 10 years of his life. Stuff that if it broke so bad, the entire internet would fail.
So the Linux Foundation's critical infrastructure effort didn't actually help?
They want to support vendor favorite projects.
I see.
The actual critical infrastructure, they cut a couple things, but I'd rather talk about that particular political nightmare over lunch.
Okay.
Just so you know, DNS, isc.org takes care of 90% of it and barely is holding on right now. So anyway, when Evan comes back, if you could you give him a round of applause?
Yes.
Say thanks. I know a lot of people that have billions of users that don't even know that their software is so good that they don't even know it's there. I got that problem too. Almost every algorithm I've helped develop is sitting there invisibly on every Linux box on the planet. And it doesn't have any bugs. If it did, I know. The internet would explode, and that kind of kept me awake a lot. So usually I'm pretty inarticulate, and I partnered up with a fellow by the name of Toki Oyland Jurgensen in Sweden for his master's and PhD thesis. And he graduated last year. And I've been kind of mute since. I really need to pick up a couple students. I never find anybody like Toki, but I got this thing about lossless congestion control and Wi-Fi stuff in the hills. It's a pretty good working environment, you know, anybody out there, and so on. So again, I really needed a clock, dude, as I get on track. I needed a volunteer. Talk about congestion control. Come on, someone volunteer. He's looking away, he's looking away. You're looking at me?
Yeah.
She?
Good. Yeah,
No?
good.
Sorry? No? You, sir. What's your name? Come on up. I'm looking for answers. I'm looking for you to come up because everybody else hasn't taken the quiz either. So, are we all both on camera? They're out there, Nelson? Can you see both of us? Can you be right here?
Yeah.
Yep. All right, cool. We're not going to try to answer the questions. I'm just going to try talking about congestion control on the internet in general. When you're having a conversation, you and I are talking, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you close your eyes. Close your eyes. And what I want you to do is when I start talking too fast, tell me to stop. So I've been trying to talk about congestion control with all these different people, and I've been talking so much, and you put stop. What did I say?
So basically, I just focused on the speed of your speech, but I didn't focus on the content.
It's true. This is actually a real problem. We spend so much time doing packet processing, we can't do anything intelligent now or retain anything. I didn't do that quite as well as I wanted to. But in that particular case, you told me to stop. And the right answer would have been, I don't know what you said. Could you repeat it?
Okay.
All right? Okay. That is the original classic congestion control algorithms of the internet. Every device and every program are blind to each other. All they can do is hear you. And if I'm talking really slowly, you'll get bored and pick up your phone. So I have to find a natural rate for how I possibly talk to you so I can get to our go.
Yeah.
And then we keep going from there and there and there. But your eyes are closed. You have to tell me when to stop because you can't understand the phone. And you say, repeat that.
Okay.
Now there's another thing that's really, really cool. Those are the only two signals. One of them is called drop. He dropped and he asked me to repeat what I said. Okay. If we didn't have that, the internet would have collapsed completely. If you just sat there like many of my audiences like this saying, yep, yes, Dave. Yep. Mm-hmm. When's lunch? The internet would have collapsed a long time ago and we'd be off learning how to play guitar, playing music and interacting with each other and doing stuff that I think would be better than the internet most of the time. Anyway, there's another form of congestion control that I've been working on lately. It's called lossless congestion control. And that is a way as if the other person that you're talking to, if that person's eyes and body language tell you to speed up or slow down. Let's do that again.
Okay.
So I was talking about congestion control earlier. I talked about the very important part that we really need to talk about. So you really have to talk about it. You see his eyes rolling back in his head? Yeah. So when I see that, I can slow down.
Okay.
And lossless congestion control is observing gradual signals from you. So I'm going to get my point across.
Yeah.
And we'll be able to have
Yeah.
a real conversation.
Yeah.
Cool.
I see it.
That's cool. I need another volunteer. Just on an equal opportunity volunteer, can I bring you this up to the table too? Thank you. Okay. Now, stand behind him. Okay. How many of you know what a FIFO is? First in and first out. And now in a queue, right? So I can talk to you for a while, and then you got to get out of my way, and then I can talk to you for a while, and then you got to be ready. Talk to you for a while. And if you get a whole enormous line of people that I have to talk to one at a time, it takes me a while. You might get bored, pick up your phone, and do something else. However, stand next to each other. There's a thing from queuing theory called fair queuing. The algorithm I talk about mostly, the RFC 8290 FQ-CODL, has 10, 24 queues. Have enough students in the room to do more than 3, so I'm going to do 2 for now. And that means I can talk to both of them. And usually it's so much faster than that. I can have this conversation and that conversation, this conversation, that conversation. That kind of feedback. So fast you don't even know. This is the general term. It's called generalized processor sharing. It's used by every multitasking computer in the world. It's also used to multiplex almost anything, disk drives, networks. Thing is, when we first started the internet, get back in front of them from do equal opportunity. Okay. When we started the internet and we got a packet in, we had a 4-packet buffer, and that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. Okay. So a packet would come in. I'm going to come in right here. Hi, you're going where? Go back around this way.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Come on over here.
Okay.
Come here. Back, come in. Come over here. Both of you come back to where you were. I usually do this with about 8 people. You know, get you all out of your seats and get your butt up. I can do it too. So with a 2-packet buffer in this case, go.
Again.
Yep. Go. Come on in, Evan. I'll say thanks for being nice. Anyway, can I get you, while you're here, can I get you up?
Sure.
I want to put you to work. Did you bring your harp?
Nope.
I brought you one.
Cool.
I still, without a clock, I can't, my watch is not working.
So this isn't close enough for you, right? I just put my
I don't
phone
have
out.
my glasses. Oh, 10:35? So I have 25 minutes? Good. Okay. Oops. All right.
More than next time.
All right. So this is the FIFO queue, and I, as the computer involved here, the fake computer, thinking like the machine, only have a 2-packet buffer. 3 packets arrive simultaneously. Come on. Ah, I drop him. He's gone. And that's okay. Come on back, you two. In the TCP protocol, the fact that that drop happened means that the rate that these 2 packets can circulate, keep doing it a couple of times, improves. This is a round trip, by the way. All right, Evan, back you two. Evan, get back in line.
Sure.
That's cool. Come on through. Oh, hell, I just ran out of space. Come through again. This is what's called congestion avoidance. Come back, keep going. You can come back in. Keep going. Now what's really cool, keep going, keep that separation. Buffering and delay and distance are the same thing. You can store packets in the wire. And that's what we do. We fill up wires from here to New York City with packets. And so long as they're spread out enough, they just keep doing this stuff until they get really tired. You guys can stop now. Okay. And with that fundamental algorithm, congestion avoidance, if I had a computer with a 32 megabyte buffer, I could store pretty much the entire university and then some in here. And the problem with doing that is that if I then try to send everyone in this university through that door, how long would it take? It's one of the questions on the test. It's your homework. Okay? Do that math. Because we screwed up. We didn't understand that deeply. One of my test results, the worst one ever, go in flight in an airplane. 777 seconds of buffering on the airplane. Anyone ever click on anything and wait 770 seconds to get it back? The amount of overbuffering we're seeing on the internet today ranges anywhere between 200 milliseconds and about 16 to 32. This, in my mind, is also causes great psychological disturbance for many people, because your brain, at least my brain used to work like this, you reach for something and boom, you got it back, pretty much in a fixed amount of time. And you click on the internet and sometimes you get it back, other times you sit there and you hit reload. You get really frustrated. And this has been part what's wrong to me with the internet. I think also that the buffer bloat problem is why we've seen the rise of texting. Because telephony is like shouting across the room and nobody can understand you. Gotta say, your body language is really awesome. I'm gonna have to use you next time. I
Oh,
do it.
really?
Yes. You go like this.
Connection close.
Sorry?
Connection close.
Connection what? Connection close. Thanks, Evan. So you know, having that interaction, not just, could you repeat that? Having that thing happen. So I've worked really hard on making video conferencing work as well, using these algorithms. So my hope has always been that I'd be able to get the internet down to where you could have a VR glasses on, be able to have this conversation, and have a little assistance here and there, but have it be 100% transparent. And to do that, you need to get it under 4 milliseconds. And with these algorithms on fiber in San Francisco 3 years ago, we achieved the amount of buffer bloat related delay below 3 milliseconds. Really proud of that result. And I hope that what you'll find that the VR glasses, etc., are in the 220 to 80 range. And that is across the wrong side of the divide for humans to be able to handle it. I didn't mean to keep you up so long. I got a little distracted. Oh, I need to do fair queuing. So a FIFO queue was all we could do then in a 2-packet buffer. And then we added hundreds of megabytes of memory with a FIFO queue. There's a wonderful paper that came out recently that showed that the congestion control mechanism that we had, which was packet drop, at these volumes, at distances of big buffers, simply cannot work. Period. Cannot work. There's a lot of people trying, cannot. And there's another technique that we needed to introduce called fair queuing. What fair queuing does is it looks like at the IP address, destination, and port number of a packet header. So like you're going to, I'm going to go back to your chair. So your chair is 1, your chair is 2. You're going to go back to your chair, you're going to go back to your chair, and then you're going to come back. But I'm going to make somebody else do that work.
Okay.
I distracted. I was tired.
It's okay.
So anyway, so packet the stream, all your molecules, okay, are going to flow back to your chair there.
Okay.
Okay, but
Not now.
and all of your molecules, all the pieces, the atoms in your body. Remember the transporter in Star Trek? Do you think those beams are separate? No, they get all mixed together. So in order to do this really well, you have to mix your atoms together and go back to the chair. Just do it in your head. That's what intuition is all about. Thank you very much. Give those guys a hand. I'm sorry, I don't have my glasses. What time is it?
I'm sorry, 10:40.
10:40. I have 10 minutes.
If this is closer to you, can you say?
Well, like this.
Half an hour.
I have half an hour?
Yeah.
Oh, darn. So, let me look at my other ones here.
By the way, I just wanted to mention, like what you're talking about with keeping packets in flight, made me think of PFS. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I'm sorry,
Can you hear
something NFS?
PingFS. Ping, P-I-N-G, where like you use ICMP packets as like a file system.
That's cool. That's a really good thought experiment. I agree with you. I haven't heard of that one. We've encoded the DNS pack. We've encoded VPNs into DNS as well. And cool, thank you. Is that Nelson saying that one in there?
From
Aldrin.
Nice to meet you,
Aldrin
Alvin.
over there.
Yeah, it's actually a project, and it's like done 5 years ago. It's pretty funny.
Okay, that's cool. The problem with the fair queuing idea, although it's been well established and written up, almost every theorist that comes up with this says, "This solves everything," and they go around yelling and screaming, "Eureka, eureka," and proving it with math. And then they get fed up because nobody understands them, and they go away, and people go back to having the FIFO queues that everyone does seem to understand. And the internet just gets worse. You can't, even though fair queuing was well established in the early 1990s, and I used it in 2002 and did it at all. We've changed that enormously in the the last 8 years. Every Linux box defaults to fair queuing for packets by default. The associated algorithm CODL is something that reduces queue lengths to manageable size. You ever walk into a store and see 50 people in line and decide it's time to go get a beer? Come back later? That is essentially, well, the math is a little trickier than that, is essentially what the CODL algorithm does. And the combination of those two in 2012, May 12th, 2012, I think really fixed the bufferbloat problem in the internet forever. However, we've only managed to cover Linux with it. Roughly 1/3 of the new access points have it, not all of them. It's been 8 years of trying. It's an enormous number of things that need to get fixed to get that to work. That pretty much covers the quiz. Honestly, I'd like you to go read the material and read the quiz. And then I thought I'd talk about 2 or 3 more things. But I thought I would pause for a second and see if I actually had any questions from the audience. Nelson, PingFS is cool. What else you got in your bag?
No, I don't have any question yet.
Aldrin, I see Nelson there as an Aldrin there. There's just 2 different offices.
Yeah,
Aldrin.
yeah.
Yeah?
That's on Zoom.
I guess
Yes.
the only other question I maybe have is, so I know that there's like backbone servers, right, which like have to handle a lot of traffic. And so I'm curious what the distinction is between like the DNS servers versus the backbone servers, and whether like some of the backbone servers or the I don't know if the backbone servers also run BGP, but I'm just curious, like, do they host things like DNS servers as well, or are those like totally separate servers in order to handle like the throughput?
Evan,
Really separate.
explain it. Anycast in particular.
Yeah,
Can you hear Evan back there?
Yeah,
Okay.
the DNS is an application that runs on top of the internet. It doesn't generally, the major DNS servers do not generally coexist with the BGP servers that handle all the routing. But a trick that you can do with BGP is that you can provide multiple servers around the world that are all listening on the same address, and BGP just handles getting people's packets to the right one, depending on what's the shortest and most efficient route. So the central servers on the internet are the ones that we call the root servers. Every domain name, google.com, whatever, actually has another secret domain name, another label at the end. It's google.com dot, and then there's an empty string. And the server that you use to look up an address on the internet knows how to reach the servers that host that empty zone at the end. Those are called the root servers. There's 13 of them, but there's way more than 13 because each one of them is anycasted across multiple nodes. So there might be hundreds.
All right, you got all that? All right, anybody else?
So when you send a query for the root zone, it's going to tell you how to find the servers for com, which in turn will tell you how to find the servers for google.com, which in turn will tell you how to find the address for www.google.com. So it's a
Recursive name service.
yeah.
It was the world's first scalable database system.
I think it's the only well-known distributed system that is actually going across the administrative domain, right? That scales across administrative domains,
Yeah.
which is something that been actually really not well researched. Other than that system, when I teach distributed systems, I just sort of point out that actually we know very little about distributed systems that go across administrative domains, right? Most distributed systems are within. And in fact, I think one of the things that you find is the internet was a great example of a system, a distributed system across administrative domains. But it's sort of reverting into fewer and fewer administrative domains today, right? Basically the hyperscalers that are introducing their own protocols and their own web browsers and sort of becoming more of a private enterprise. The internet as a private enterprise, right? And it's something that I think is always something that the public has to be very vigilant about, because you can easily lose system and the openness of having many administrative domains involved.
Well, let me use a real example. How many of you people have a computer that has a name?
How many have your own domain name?
Cool. That's still good to know. Those should have been portable. You should be able to transfer a file from your laptop to your cell phone without going through my machines are all named after asteroids. One's called Ceres, and another is called Täht. And Täht orbits have there's a couple. Anyway, it's a long story, but I feel personally about my machines, a little animism, and they're mine. And I gave them names. They're my kids, and I don't want to have anything else attached to them. I've had my own domain name for over 25 years. And yet it's become more and more difficult for me to attach that name to my own devices in the last decade. And coming up fairly soon is a new technology in the IETF called DOH, D-O-H, which takes away the last distributed aspects of DNS. I'm trying to scare people into working on many alternatives.
There's an internal arms race between centralization and distribution.
And distribution, in my mind, is losing in part because of the bufferbloat problem. Better to toss something on a fast, reliable server in the cloud than on your home network, which has all these kinds of latencies and stuff built into it. Also, it's very difficult. So much easier to just click on something with ads than it is to actually install and configure your own mail server today. I'd like to see sort of like a back to basics movement. You know, everybody here should have their own mail server, not store stuff in the cloud. I'd sleep better. How many people have heard about the latest vulnerabilities in the Intel systems? MDS, particular, Spectre before that. I turned off hyper-threading 2 years ago. I sleep a little better, but most of my stuff was on a machine running an obscure architecture on a box and a firewall. It's usually unplugged. All my music is backed up and offline. One of the funnier stories, I'm one of the, I'm still stumped. I've got more stuff to conclude with, but I'm going to do this one. Anybody ever use Wi-Fi here? Anybody here remember what time we didn't have Wi-Fi? What did we do with ourselves? Back in 1998, I rented out a house with a friend of mine, Greg Witowski, up in the hills of Redwood Estates. And we both worked on the internet a lot. And we couldn't get internet up there except over a phone line. It didn't work. And yet we could see from our wonderful viewpoint up there all of our friends with bandwidth. ADSL, 256K. And we hit upon the idea that we try to get ourselves a wireless bridge. No one was building them yet for the IP stack. And we tried a whole lot of things over the course of about 7 months. We settled on an idea of booting Linux off floppy and putting it into a 486 16-bit box on the roof, and these two antennas that pointed down to a friend of ours with DSL. The work that we did there ultimately helped turn into what we call Wi-Fi today.
So yeah, thank you.
Thank you for coming. So I am sort of indirectly one of the inventors of the embedded Linux wireless access point. And for years, we ran our own website off of that thing up there in the cloud because we had fair queuing on our network, on our Wi-Fi in that era. It was painful. Someone could download a web page while we were uploading one. Just worked. And that's not what happened because I wasn't paying attention. And
it's interesting. I just came across an older version, like an old directory. You know, I was just moving around my home directories that is like been inherited over decades, basically. And there was an early Apple computers had like this point where it's like a subdirectory called sites, and the default website in there was basically the welcome web page of an Apache server. So it was apparently the vision that every home computer, every laptop, and every having their own web server, right?
It'll be where you
would
share your
publish it.
personal data.
Right, and you would publish it, and then you would have actually some kind of infrastructure that, you know, other people can just connect to that website.
Anywhere you went,
Yeah.
carlos.net or laptop.carlos.net would be reachable by somebody else.
Right. And so-
What a beautiful and naive vision that was. Still possible. There's still people trying to make it work. There's a group up in San Francisco doing, it's called IPFS, fully distributed file
Yep,
system.
yep.
And I've talked to them about the bufferbloat problem. And trying to get this in context with getting to this context with your classes overall. If you used to think that the network was reliable, and I've hopefully convinced you it's not, it has incredibly variable latencies. How do you get distributed system to work? It's got data on one machine over here, you got data on another machine over here. One of them's at 100 megabit, one's at 1. One's got 10,000 millisecond delay, one's got 2 total. We don't have a whole lot of good ways of coping with this newly unreliable internet, building widely distributed systems, aside from continuing to port centralized resources, well-managed resources in the cloud. Unless we have algorithms such as fair queuing and FQCODL that manage to keep the latencies and latency low and the reliability high.
So I'm not sure if this is a question as much as a topic,
Yeah.
but I'd like to ask you about homogeneity and heterogeneity. And first of all, a comment, pfSense has FQCODL in it. I'm running it at home. It actually works great. So it's not just Linux. BSD is also there. But on the wider topic, I think one of the challenges that we face as the internet grows is that it becomes more and more heterogeneous. You can't guarantee that FQCODL is running on every node in your transit from requested to producer. So, you know, what do you think about the best queuing strategy, congestion management strategy, that applies to an internet that is independently managed and may have widely differing implementations of congestion flow management in different islands?
Wow, this took this conversation way up. I was about ready to break out the guitar and the right brain kick in. All right, there's 2 major aspects to that. I got a paper for you called 50 Shades of Congestion Control. Came out in March. Read that.
Okay.
I'm working on adding 4 items to that. But basically, that one basically shows that anything that we do that's based purely on the end-to-end principle cannot work with everything else. They break things up, however, into 3 separate groups of algorithms. There's loss-based, there's delay-based, and there's hybrid-based algorithms. I showed you a loss-based algorithm earlier today. The delay-based one is one that observes the amount of time it takes, and as the queue gets longer, they decide to go away. Arguably, when the internet first went down in 1986, delay-based would have been a much better algorithm than loss-based. It really would have been. But they were kind of in a hurry and they needed to get their email. I'm kind of joking. At the time, you couldn't get an accurate timestamp out of computers. You could not do a delay-based end-to-end congestion control. And so we went with loss-based. All the current research is on hybrid stuff that can knock loss-based algorithms out of the way and also do delay-based. The most popular one of those is called BBR. By the way, BBR version 2 should be out any day now. And I've had a lot of input into that one because I really hate parts of it and I really love other parts of it. It's the wonderful paper in that one is called Congestion-Based Congestion Control, which includes Van Jacobson as a co-author. And I've been working simultaneously on this thing called lossless congestion control. Were you here were you here earlier? So
I was on the bridge earlier. I came in public.
Well, go look at a presentation in the IATF called Sudden Congestion Experienced, SCE, and there's a competing idea called L4S, cable industry is putting out. Is this being recorded?
Now it is.
We can stop the
I'm
recording.
willing to put it on record. How can you tell? So this is this new L4S is this new wonderful, amazing lossless congestion control method. It will make video conferencing and gaming over the internet work really spectacular with a millisecond of delay. And it's being promoted by the cable industry. How can you tell if someone in the cable industry is lying? His lips are moving. This particular proposal is awful. I can't tell you how awful it is in the time I have available, but I could come up with our group. I didn't come up with it. Our group came up with a new idea called some congestion experience, which restores, which keeps the inherent meshy peer-to-peer user-oriented internet experience while also achieving, and for real, vast improvements in delay and congestion control, much like I showed you with that gentleman over there in terms of responsiveness of being able to speed up or slow down. It's very exciting and still just in the early research stage. And my pet student graduated last year. So some congestion
Yeah,
experience.
I think you pointed, earlier to the Linux News article, right? The Linux News Weekly article that basically showed that I think that actually the L4S, what's it called, the hyperscaler,
L4S, dual pi,
yeah,
and so on.
has actually a patent for saying.
The patent claim is irrelevant. It's bad. The technology doesn't actually work.
I see.
It also uses up. So the patent is a problem. It's a good problem because that's gonna that creates impetus for it not to happen.
Right.
But the
I mean,
real problem is
there
the
was like an
underlying theory
interesting,
of technology was wrong.
because of Fran terms, even though the patent, licenses were available for Fran terms, like GPL Linux is not going to accept that.
GPL will never do it, and most of the BSDs won't either.
Yeah.
Which these guys over there think is great. They'll be able to make their own proprietary version and be able to license it out. It's not just a patent. After the battle in the IETF, I had to take 2 months off. This is recorded? Hopefully not. And I ended up calling the 2 groups I was battling with Bogons, Lucy Mitchell's Guide to the Galaxy. They're the bureaucrats. In this case, the Bogons is the cable industry. They're trying to destroy the earth to make a cable labs bypass. Bogons. And there's a whole other group in the IETF, I call them Bokanonists. They got a book. How many here were reading for Kurt Vonnegut? All right, there's somebody here who's not read Kurt Vonnegut that I would like to give this book to. Somebody? Come on, somebody. I'll pick you out random. Eeny, meeny, miny, moe, catch a tiger by the toe. Could I give it to this person here? This book is about a fictional religion called Bokanonism. Everybody tells pretty lies to everybody else. And if you do that, everybody's happy for a while until the world ends and everybody dies. So what happens in that book? It's otherwise quite fun. Really great book.
What did the LTE crowd do for congestion control?
Well, last measurement I had on 5G was 1.6 seconds of buffer bloat in the early stuff from AT&T. Not a lot. Next to nothing. And one of my fears, I spent the last few weeks trying to reverse engineer Starlink. Have you heard of Starlink? SpaceX's new interplanetary internet. It's really cool. They launched the first batch of 60 satellites 2 weeks ago, and I realized that nobody, including me, knew anything about how it was going to work. So naturally, I posted the question on Reddit, will Starlink have buffer bloat? And Starlink called me back last week and asked me to talk to them. And I've been kind of excited about that. But I do hope, because they use Linux extensively, they've already got it wired, and I just got to wait to buy the product. It'll be great. Time?
It's 11, so we have now 20 minutes.
Cool. One more book for everybody. I grew up hacking little computers. Who took my little computers? Which of you, who of you have not read this one? Hacker's Delight. All right, as a professor, I'd like you to have this one, sir. Okay. Back in the 70s when I was growing up hacking on the switches on my little computers, there was a wonderful series of memos that came out called HackMem. And they were written on a mimeograph machine, not emailed. And they described all these really fascinating, simple, and fast ways to twiddle bits, to do all kinds of neat stuff like multiplication, division by weird numbers, faking floating point using integer math, doing all kinds of stuff. And that they collected all those notes in that wonderful book there. And everybody that wants to be a true hacker needs to do that one. So thanks. So I got 20 minutes left, and really I ran out of material. I have my guitar, I got bufferbloat. I can talk about free software, talk about, who here has heard the phrase open source?
So we should, by the way, I should just quickly make an announcement. We have a research meeting today at 1 o'clock, room 599, in the other building, engineering 2. That's like usually the research meeting for my group, but we're going to be have Dave there, and we can have like more, everybody's welcome.
Yeah, I plan to sit in the back and do spitballs. That's like I used to. So I'm going to do that, go to lunch, and after it, from 2:30 to 4:30, because I'm trying to relive my student days, I'm planning to sit out someplace sunny with a view, with my guitar, my friend Evan, and try to recapture those times. If anyone wants to hang with us at 2:30 to 4:30, I need like a native guide. Somebody tell me where the best view is and sound here.
I recently discovered the jungle trail from here to the bookstore, campus bookstore.
Don't want to do jungle. I want to find some place with sun.
Okay.
So coming up in the fog today. So I thought I'd talk about open source for a while. If I could.
Can we talk about
sure, storage maybe?
And no, actually, I'm really interested in it's not directly related to storage, but it's related to mesh networking.
Sure.
And so, what are sort of like the efforts? There was like for a while there was this idea of a roof net. I think
MIT, yes.
MIT just sort of came onto that, but it sort of like got commercialized and disappeared. But I know that, for instance, in Cupertino, people have now started using it for emergency response. Do you know any of this?
Oh, yeah.
So
I've been involved in Wi-Fi since the very beginning. I was talking at MIT about this. And when we started Wi-Fi, we too thought it would be peer-to-peer. Built in the original architecture is totally the ability for that device to talk directly to that device, and it's still there. Using a mode called ad hoc mode. And they keep trying to rip it out. And people keep putting it back in because it's used for exactly those purposes, emergency response teams, etc. So Charlie Perkins, by the way, is another member of the campground I go to, and he's one of the original founders of the whole mesh networking thing. And we've been talking for years. And when I first did Sarawak, I also had this peer-to-peer thing. And before that, when I was living in Nicaragua, trying to set up peer-to-peer Wi-Fi networks, this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart. It's really dumb to send everything to Google to get it from there to there. Particularly if you're in a burning forest fire, you need to just get a piece of photograph of a loved one to somebody else. So emergency response systems are near and dear to my heart. How many here were for, you guys are probably younger, all of you, normally am. How many people were here for the big quake, 89? This one. I got here briefly after that. If that quake were to happen again here, the internet would go down hard. And it's terrifying to me that we're just not prepared. And In order to be prepared, we have to have decentralized systems. We need to be able to pick up.
It's actually, I can highly recommend everyone to, if there's a local emergency response effort, anything, right, to participate that at least for a while.
Yeah.
Because it actually gives you first the perspective of what actually people know about emergency response, right? And so you get to learn about that. But the other part also, we are so used to always leverage the highest form of technology, right? And when you engage with those groups, they're much more interested, instead of using the latest and greatest technology, using the technology that actually works, right? And they're very careful. They almost remind me of sort of an Amish culture where everything is extremely critically reviewed before it's adopted, and so so when they're like one of the things that they recently adopted is packet radio, which is basically use normal radios but low bandwidth radios, but instead of just talking over them, you actually use packets. You use actually a modem, and a modem it sounds very much like the old modems that make funny sounds. They're very low bandwidth again, because the radio signal is only allowed at very low bandwidth, but you suddenly realize, that step from voice to packet is huge. Suddenly you can actually transmit tables. You don't have to, you have much less fewer errors, but it's all really low tech. And you see them sort of slowly moving up the stack and moving, into higher technology. So they adopted recently RoofNet, right? RoofNet wireless network, because wireless is much higher frequency, much higher bandwidth than those ham radios, and so suddenly you can actually, but it's real work to actually figure out, and they do real exercises where they say, okay, assume all communication is down, right, for a whole day.
Only got battery life.
Exactly, no power, right? And then come up with these scenarios, and then you have to sort of figure out what, and you find very quickly what breaks down, right? And so it's a really nice exercise to sort of go through and kind of realize what your everyday life is built on. And when you suddenly realize, okay, certain technology is just gone, right? But on the other hand, it's also cool if you then reintroduce that technology very carefully and get to the point where you can really appreciate, oh yeah, wireless is really a cool technology, but you can use it in very different ways than just wireless that we use every day.
That's beautiful. We could take hours on this, but I do want to jump into 3 separate things. One of the greatest things that I've done in my life is one of the nicest people, one of the most comforting people I ever met is a fellow by the name of Rory. He's a fireman. I like firemen and emergency responders because they really know what to do when things go to hell. And having one of those people in your life is a good thing. And because they're confident, they're just a comfort to be around. Rory's a great guy. I also know one of the guys that's behind Packet Radio. His name is David Rowe. He also was one of the founders of the open hardware movement based in Australia. If you go looking for his name, David Rowe, R-O-W-E. He's been working on voice codecs and very low packet rate radio and so on. And moving forward and sideways, there's a huge mesh networking community in Europe. I was just in Catalonia, Spain, where I can't pronounce the G right. WiFi. .net is the world's largest mesh community network ever. There's over 30,000 nodes connected together every which way with every kind of technology. It's all volunteer run. It's pretty cool. There's a whole group called BattleMesh, battlemesh.org, which combines the 5, maybe it's 7 now, the 5 major wireless meshing network protocols in the world. And they benchmark them together and drink a lot of beer. But that's just very small community. It's well worth joining, but that's still one step. That was over Wi-Fi. The packet radio group comes from the ham crowd, and the ham guys are used to building things that survive earthquakes, nuclear disaster, etc. Battle mesh guys are kind of from Germany. The power never goes off there. I actually remember asking them one of these guys questions here. So, well, why don't you have we happen to be an unreliable place where the power just going out? And everyone was like, what do we do? And I'm here there with my UPSs and stuff. I'm good. I'm golden. Here. Where are you from? Germany. When was the last time you had a power failure? I think I was 6. Not kidding. So I think everybody should travel, spend some time in a third world country, leave your phone behind, bring along some paper and pencils, and try to live on fruits and berries. Join the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, Scouts, whatever the hell you call them now, and try to get back in touch with the really fundamental things. Because if we ever have an earthquake like that here again, you'll end up getting very much in touch with them. The Highway 17 was blocked for how long, Evan?
Couple of weeks.
Couple of weeks.
3 weeks, yeah.
Route 1 was blocked. There was no way in or out. We were in danger of running out of food and water. And the internet was down.
I think all the microwave connections, right, would be adjusted.
So my intent in an emergency like that, I have friends that are part of Fryfunk, which is another mesh networking group, and another, they were dropping radios that ran Skype into refugee camps during the Iraqi war. I have another group of friends that worked during the Katrina thing. That was a nightmare. They got there 3 days before FEMA did, and were getting satellite uplink and people communicating with their families 3 days before FEMA showed up. And FEMA showed up and got all officious and kicked everybody out. And it was almost a week longer before any of the people that they were serving could actually get back online. They really fixed that policy. The person currently in charge, or the person that was in charge of FEMA, last I heard, is a great guy. But during the Katrina, not so much. So he adopted a policy of flexibility towards volunteerism, intelligence, and decentralization in FEMA that I really admired. So, wow, national networks.
Yeah, I wonder whether that in Catalonia, what is it used for? I mean, what do people use it for? Is it like neighbor communications, or is it just a way to connect to the regular internet? Or
They had no internet at all, and they had power issues. I mean, they had modems. WiFi started, I don't know, 15 years ago. Nothing. You know, so they had one guy. That's sort of how the internet spread here in Santa Cruz. Evan and I have a mutual friend who's now sadly deceased. His name is John Dubois. And he started a geek house down here called the Armory. And he got internet from the university, I think it was. And he went around putting up one modem and then a couple modems and then connecting people over modems for free back in the late 80s. And that grew and grew. And so on. And that's happened so many other places before it became centralized and corporate. So that's how all these meshing networks, they were a place were inadequately served by the centralized stuff. People took in their own technology in their own hands, and they did it. And that's still something that rural America needs, and can use, and needs. And actually, I'll argue.
Starlink comes along.
Well, Starlink's business model is different. The uplink, downlink's going to cost a lot. So what's going to happen is that they're going to drop this pizza box on top of your grass hut somewhere, solar panels and batteries. And then from there, you're going to spread out Wi-Fi to your neighbors and then run fiber or Ethernet or tin cans and string or whatever it takes to connect the rest of your community. So it's going to be that kind of organic growth, leveraging one piece of technology. So at least, by the way, that's a reverse engineering exercise. I've only been doing it for 2 weeks.
I think that Starlink is so cool because it's actually really close to the Earth. It's not like the normal satellite phone systems, right, which are like, I don't know how many, 22 miles out or something. This one is.
I heard someone mumble right now.
thousands of miles. This has like 200 something.
1,200 kilometers.
1,200
It's the bottom constellation.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so the delay is much smaller, and so you can actually use it for interactive stuff.
The projected baseline MAC latency is between 10 and 20 milliseconds, which is good enough to be able to plug my guitar into the satellite and play with a drummer across the country. I hope. If they fix their buffer bloat. I won't know that for a week or 3 more. You can still see the constellation at night if you really want to look. And they're planning to fly several thousand. Didn't mean to jump on you there. I just inhaled so much information about this thing. It was just great.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Wow.
All right. I think we're about at the end. Any other questions? No.
Yeah. Anyone join us from 2:30 and 4:30 for an impromptu concert anywhere? Raise your hands.
Jim, who was sitting here earlier.
Yes.
I'll check.
All right. So I'm going to lunch, I think, and then I'm,
Yeah, we're gonna lunch. Then we're gonna go to the research meeting at 1.
and then I'm
And
off.
then after 2:30, Jim
Jim wanted
one
to
is
run
gonna
three.
call you, and then you can,
You guys can
and I have time until at 4:30.
Yep.
And we can.
I don't know. I may be sitting out there as the sun goes down.
Yeah.
No idea.
All right.
So thank you very much. I did that not only without slides, so I'm curious, you guys used to seeing slides? Did you enjoy me doing the physical thing? You tired? Yeah. I'm glad I could help empty my lab out. I got one more. Does anybody ever work really closely with hardware? They like playing around with punch boards and screens? Got one more piece of hardware I wanted to give away. Anybody? You already got one. Anybody else? But this is a beagle bone. Oh, that lady over there gets one. Okay, and I have these two for Evan. And I have one book, one copy of Bufferbloat and Beyond, my the reference book. And I think I should give that to you.
Yeah.
He was like,